Christmas night guest. The first flakes of snow began to fall as Sia pulled her car into the driveway of her childhood home. The two-story house stood like a silent guardian against the night, its frost-covered windows reflecting the glow of distant Christmas lights. The familiarity of the scene should have comforted her, but tonight, something about the house felt different, heavier, as though it was waiting for her. Sia had returned for the holidays reluctantly, pressured by her friends and the lingering guilt of avoiding the place for years. Ever since her parents' deaths, the house had been a place she avoided at all costs. It was too quiet, too full of memories. She shivered as she stepped out of the car, the winter air biting at her cheeks. With a deep breath, she hoisted her overnight bag and trudged up the snow-covered steps. The front door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit interior. Everything was just as she remembered. The polished wooden floors, the garland-wrapped banister, and the towering Christmas tree standing proudly in the living room. Yet, there was an uncanny stillness, a suffocating quiet that seemed to seep into her skin. Sia shook off the unease, muttering, "It's just a house. Don't be ridiculous." She set her bag down and made her way to the living room, the warmth of the crackling fireplace offering a brief reprieve. She smiled faintly at the sight of the tree, its ornaments glinting in the firelight. Her mother had always insisted on decorating it to perfection, even leaving instructions for Sia to continue the tradition after she was gone. Sia picked up an ornament, a delicate glass angel, and placed it on a low branch. As she adjusted it, her gaze fell on the mantel above the fireplace. Among the familiar family photos, one picture caught her eye, one she didn't recognize. It was a black and white photograph of a little girl standing in front of the house. She was smiling, clutching a stuffed bear, but there was something unsettling about her eyes. They seemed hollow, almost too dark, as if the life had been drained from them. Sia frowned. "That's not ours." She reached for the photo, but the moment her fingers brushed the frame, the fire sputtered and the lights on the Christmas tree flickered violently. The room plunged into darkness and the temperature dropped sharply. A faint sound broke the silence, a knock at the front door. Sia froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Who could be visiting at this hour and in the middle of a snowstorm? The knock came again, louder this time. "Sia." Her name was whispered, so soft it could have been the wind. Yet it felt intimate, as though someone were standing right behind her. She turned, but the room was empty. Gathering her courage, she made her way to the front door, her breath visible in the icy air. Through the frosted glass, she could make out a shadowy figure. "Who's there?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer. The doorknob turned on its own, and the door creaked open. Standing on the porch was a man in a long black coat, his face obscured by the shadow of his wide-brimmed hat. A crimson scarf was wrapped tightly around his neck, its color stark against the snowy backdrop. "Good evening, Sia," he said, his voice smooth and cold. "Do I know you?" she asked, taking a cautious step back. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm an old friend of the house." Sia's breath hitched as the man stepped over the threshold, uninvited. She tried to speak, but her throat felt dry, as though the cold air had sucked the life from her words. He removed his hat, revealing a pale, sharp-featured face with eyes that glimmered unnaturally in the dim light. "Do you mind if I come in?" he asked, though he was already inside. "Yes, I do," Sia managed, her voice shaky. "Who are you?" The man's smile widened slightly. "My name is Evan. I've been waiting for you." Sia took another step back, her mind racing. "Waiting for me? I don't know you." "Oh, but you do." He placed his hat and scarf on the coat rack with deliberate ease. "This house knows me, and deep down, so do you." Something about his presence felt suffocating, like the air had grown too heavy to breathe. Sia's eyes darted to the door, but it had swung shut behind him without a sound. "I think you should leave," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Evan chuckled softly. "You invited me in once, remember? All those years ago, on a night just like this. You were lonely, scared, and I answered." Her stomach twisted as fragmented memories surfaced. Christmas Eve years ago. She had been a child, left alone in the house while her parents were delayed by a snowstorm. The fear of the empty house, the howling wind outside, and the deep ache of loneliness. She had sat by the fireplace, clutching her stuffed bear, whispering a wish into the void. "I just want someone to stay with me," she had said through tears. The knock at the door that followed had seemed like a miracle then, but no one had been there when she opened it. Only the wind. Now, standing in front of Evan, her chest tightened. "That wasn't real," she said, shaking her head. "It was just my imagination." "Was it?" Evan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Or did you invite something into your life that never truly left?" The fireplace roared back to life, its flames unnaturally high, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. The Christmas tree lights blinked erratically, their once cheerful glow now ominous. Sia stepped backward, her voice trembling. "What do you want?" Evan tilted his head, studying her as if she were a puzzle. "You've forgotten, haven't you? This house has rules, Sia. It's not just a place. It's a presence. It holds memories, keeps them alive, and those who stay too long." He trailed off, gesturing to the photos on the mantel. Sia's stomach dropped as she noticed something horrifying. The pictures were changing. Her family photos morphed into eerie images of strangers, a father, mother, and children, all with frozen expressions of terror. In the background of each photo, Evan stood, watching. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This can't be happening." "Oh, but it is," Evan said, his voice dripping with amusement. "This house has taken many before you, and now it's your turn." The walls groaned, and the air seemed to vibrate with a low hum. Shadows writhed in the corners of the room, growing darker and more defined. The whispers began, faint at first, but soon rising into an almost deafening chant. "Sia, Sia, stay with us." She clutched her head, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Stop it! What do you want from me?" Evan's expression turned serious, almost pitying. "The house doesn't want anything from you, Sia. It wants you. You're already part of it. You just don't know it yet." Sia stumbled toward the kitchen, her mind racing. She had to get out, but every step felt heavier, like the house itself was trying to hold her in place. The walls seemed to close in, the floor groaning under her weight. She reached the drawer where her father used to keep matches and grabbed them with trembling hands. Her plan was simple: burn the house down and end whatever curse it held. As she struck the first match, Evan appeared in the doorway, his face calm but menacing. "You can't destroy this place," he said. "It's not just a house. It's a part of you. And if you destroy it, you destroy yourself." Sia hesitated, the tiny flame flickering in her hand. "You're lying." "Am I?" Evan stepped closer. "Think about it. Every memory, every moment you've ever cherished, it all happened here. This house is you, Sia, and the house never lets go." The whispers returned, louder now, blending into a haunting chorus. The shadows slithered toward her, cold and unrelenting. "Stay with us," they chanted. Sia's breathing quickened as panic set in. She couldn't burn the house if it meant destroying herself, but she couldn't stay either. There had to be another way. Her eyes fell on the black and white photograph she had seen earlier. If Evan had been in that photo, if he had been part of the house for so long, maybe he was the key. "What if I take your place?" she said suddenly, her voice trembling but determined. Evan's smile faltered. "What did you say?" "You said the house needs someone," Sia said. "Take me. Let the others go. Let the house release everyone it's holding, and I'll stay." The shadows stopped, the whispers silenced. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. Evan's expression softened, almost as if he were impressed. "You would sacrifice yourself for them?" "Yes," Sia said firmly. "Let them go and I'll stay. Forever." The shadows surged forward, engulfing Sia in a cold, suffocating embrace. She felt the weight of the house's memories pouring into her, its pain, its joy, its endless hunger. When the darkness lifted, she was alone. The house was silent, the oppressive presence gone. Sia stumbled outside, the snow crunching under her feet. The storm had cleared, and the stars shone brightly overhead. She turned back to the house, expecting it to look the same. But it was different now, darker, lifeless, as though it had been abandoned for decades. She tried to step forward, but her body wouldn't move. Looking down, she saw her hands glowing faintly, her skin becoming translucent. The truth hit her like a wave. She hadn't escaped. She was the house now.